This is the first talk which is official today, and the third in the last 24 hours. If we took an hour two yesterday evening, which were not recorded. So today we will talk about a Russian-speaking underground and recent developments, changes in modus operandi, and how external events, development of technologies, and other factors are changing the threat landscape from cybercriminal actors. So we did a lot of presentations on the Russian-speaking underground, even on this stage since 2012. And we published a variety of papers related to different undergrounds, and the Russian-speaking underground paper was the 50th related to different undergrounds. And why it doesn't called Russian, we call it Russian-speaking, because it's way more countries speak Russian than just Russia. So, and it's a kind of obstacle for underground actors to speak the common language to obfuscate their location and habits, because if actors from Kazakhstan will start to speak Kazakh language, or Ukrainians start to speak Ukrainian language on the forums, it would be better understanding of law enforcement where physically located. So, and that's why, despite the mainstream media using just Russian term or language, we want to emphasize it's just not Russia, it's many other countries. So, Russian-speaking forums and Russian-speaking underground is one of the most mature, and it really drives the technologies, the criminal business process, and many things. And if you think about cyber criminal underground, it's a collaboration of actors who have to collaborate to earn more money, and at the same time they don't trust each other. So as on previous talk, you heard about reputation and being banned. So on the left, you can see like how it looks like. Even like reputable actors can be banned for their own behavior immediately. And there were a lot of rules of engagements for many criminal forums. So some of them could say like no discussions about ransomware, for example. So let's zoom into prerequisites and key factors which are changing development and behavior of criminal actors. And not all of these factors are obvious. So anyone have insights how COVID affected, for example, cybercrime? Okay. So let's start with COVID. So what was COVID? COVID is a fast switch to remote connections to the offices. So this disrupted the perimeter of organization. It's changed the role of personal equipment. It's changed the role of security policies, which was fastly changed without preparation and the budget. It switched us to remote communications through the messengers and platforms like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, instead of in-person meetings. And it boosted e-commerce platforms because not every shop was opened while people need to leave and buy something. And since people were limited to communicate, it drove also a social media platform boom, which means people start to expose more personal life publicly on social media platforms. We start to post media content with higher quality on social media platforms. So, and this is about way more scalability of attacks. It's way more vulnerable assets exposed. So the criminals who have specializations, let's say, on initial access, right? Because the level of defense of organizations dropped, we start to get the amount of accounts which was way above the amount we can process. So it drove those collaboration processes on the criminal underground to another level, where people start to get more and more specializations, not within the particular group, but between criminal groups. And that's where you see this spike, for example, of affiliate programs for ransomware actors. It's also, as a side effect, makes us fail more often on attacker attribution, because before we kept in mind, oh, this group attacked this organization, so we can trace the group and so on. But if you have a separate entities who just made initial access, who do lateral movement with organization, who do encryption, who do data exfiltration. So instead of one entity, you could easily have 5-6 entities operated on the same incident with the same organization over time. And it's definitely that those entities are having different TTPs. And many people who just attribute attacks on just technical side, they can easily fail. And it's also changing the crime investigation by law enforcement because all the processes are changing. And it's the topic which is not, for some sense, widely discussed. So geopolitical changes. The conflict between Russia and Ukraine drove several factors. So it's disrupted a trust between the actors because many groups were combined from the actors from different countries. It made a rise of hacktivism and use of hacktivism as explanation of ongoing crimes against enemy infrastructures. It changed logistics and financial flows because of sanctions, and it's also drove a huge migration wave of ordinary people. But together with ordinary people, cyber criminal actors start to travel. And when we travel, we start to apply their knowledge to the business processes, to the environments where they are physically located, and we see appearance of the criminal business processes, for example, in Europe, which we spot on ex-USSR territories years before, and we were not so significant in other countries. So it's also drove a boom of money exchange services and boom of logistics and stuffer services. So, of course, when something is prohibited officially, but it's still needed for people, it appears on the ground, and you can see, for example, discussions of many currency transfers with a bit higher rate than usual, but it's still possible to transfer the money. You can see advertisement on sanction bypass with logistics which takes between 1 and 2 weeks, like from US and Europe on the underground. And at the bigger scale, it drove a boom of stuffers. So people who are buying products like iPhones, MacBooks, and many other things, often using either stolen credit cards or compromised accounts on e-commerce platforms, and delivering this in other countries and reselling this at the part of the price. So roughly, you can see appearance of new equipment like iPhones with the price of 70% of the regular one, which is fully packed, fully new, but sold on the platforms which are similar to eBay. So it doesn't have any financial reason to have this price and to have this at the scale while it happens. So, and the background of this could be a stuffer business, which is pretty well organized. So we just map a bit of this, like how this works. And part of this, it looks like a normal logistic ecosystem where people are hired to work for logistics companies. So we're receiving parcels, we're sending parcels, and so on. And we think we're working for a legitimate business where huge stocks, for example, in the United States, and if you dive deeper, you can see the background is like this for such logistics companies. So travel services, it's something existed before, and we did research on this in 2017-18. But you can compare the prices, for example, like for hotels in Dubai on the underground, and it would be like 30, 40, 50% of the regular price. So another side effect, which probably not just geopolitical, but also the result of appearance of LLMs, is appearance of the foreigners on the Russian-speaking forums. And some foreigners are indicating that we are foreigners. For others, you can see this as artifacts which are appearing on the forum posts. And there are a lot of topics with Chinese-speaking actors who pretend to be Russian-speaking on like mobile security, on purchasing technologies, and so on. So we are jumping into technology developments, and let's stop on several highlights here. So one of the things that's happening is you probably know about bulletproof hostings, which were something you can host wherever you want, like in Cyber Bunker, and then nothing happened, nobody took down, and so on. So this concept is evolved into which content you can host in particular location. So if it's, let's say, drugs, so the topic wouldn't popular in Russia. So like this topic, it's not easy to host in Russia. While if it's something else, you can host it in Russia, and it's really hard to take down asset in Russia as long as it doesn't target local citizens. So it's more about geographic choice. If you need to host something against Russia, you can host this in Ukraine, and nobody will take down this, and so on. So it's one of the changes. So the amount of hostings which you can use for wherever you want is decreased. At the same time, the strategic placing of the hosting for having particular role is decreasing. The second thing is the role of residential proxies are increased versus bulletproof hosting. So because residential proxies are enabling a lot of things, because we are built often on the compromised devices, and there is opportunity to give very precise location of the exit node of residential proxy. So think about a commerce platform account which was stolen, and when the person who bought the account accessing from another country, it will trigger anti-fraud. But if the person accessing with the same accounts, with the same session, from the same city and distant of the city to buy something on Amazon, let's say, so the chances that second factor like additional authentication would be triggered is very low. So and that's the way criminals are bypassing many security controls related to different business processes, criminal business processes. We had a talk about ransomware, double extortion, like before, about leak of sensitive data. So this criminal model created a huge amount of personal information exposed on citizens of roughly any country. And I mentioned the popularity of social media platforms during the COVID, where people unintentionally exposed their biometrics with very high quality, so you can use this biometrics to enroll into financial systems, into the government systems. So this combination with additional accessibility of AI actually brings you into the packages where you can buy like identities for people, like identity kits. You can buy like photos of people, and you can actually combine this into the level where you can create accounts in financial institutions, in crypto exchange platforms, in even government services on behalf of our people without your awareness on this. So, and this leads us to the situation there. A, people can do a money laundry. B, for the public figures like executives of the companies and politicians, it creates opportunities to ruin their reputation without their awareness. So think about somebody open account in the bank on behalf of politician and just sending like money to the terrorist group on behalf of politician. So those technologies are already available on the market. And I don't know about exact cases in the wild with high-profile figures, but this scenario is very realistic. So, and you can see examples on bypassing like cryptocurrency verification platforms, discussions, financial institutions, and other things here. So another side effect of accessibility of AI, it's capabilities to attack the countries where you don't have a knowledge of the language and culture before. So before, the majority of attacks were against roughly English-speaking countries. But LLMs give opportunity to scale attacks not just inside Europe, but all over the world. So it's one of the effect. Another effect is automation, and you heard in the previous talk about why programming by criminal actors. So any prototype takes not so much time now. So, and you can see like tools like warm-up scripts. It's like when you slowly bypassing anti-fraud systems and security systems by either like buying small amounts, by ordering amounts, in this case on the same address as victim is. So, and that's why sometimes you get in strange packages which you didn't order because your account is compromised and criminals are preparing to defraud your account at bigger scale. And as part of this procedure, we need to ensure that anti-fraud system doesn't trigger alert. So maturity changes is like criminals start to earn way more money. That means we can buy new exploits, we can hire more qualified people, we can scale the attack, and actually the capabilities of criminal groups are currently comparable or even more advanced comparing to some national states. And that means that national states have opportunity to order some criminal services on the underground, and at the same time we're getting deniability, and at the same time we're just spending less efforts to reach the targets. So in the terms of maturity, you can also see criminals doing secure cloud environments, secure tools, OPSEC hardware equipment. You can see that some interesting services like extracting information from Interpol, Europol databases, extracting information about travel, like where the person traveled, and our details are available on the criminal underground, so like human intelligence. And we see a bigger transition into cyber physical activities, like the simple case would be the stamps. But the services like putting pressure on the victim, like soft pressure, like, I don't know, like calling, knocking the door at night. But where our services, which are requiring physical presence of the criminals, and like forceful actions like burning the door, burning the car in particular location of a particular victim. So those services are available on the underground, and we even found advertisement like admitting a crime. So people looking for the person to admit a crime and get money for this. So does this touch in somehow European Union? I would say yes, because before part of those services were available only on ex-USSR territories, and now we see more and more advertisement where Europe is within the scope. In this case, it's physical actions like arson, also like surveillance services in Europe. Also, you can see another confirmation people like illegal crossing the border with European Union. You can see requests like for German speakers for the fraud operations, and you can see like money laundering services, which explicitly claiming we can do this in Ukraine, in Europe, for example. Or you can see a SIM cards offer in European Union, which you can buy for cryptocurrency, like another case with the SIM cards, and SIM cards are linked to a digital identity. So we see variety of fraud, like a lot of like SMS activity, SMS phishing, which was at big scale before on Russian-speaking or ex-USSR countries, now coming here. Staffer operations and like physical actions services, surveillance services, and very similar activities which are requiring physical presence at the territory are scaling and advertising on European Union territory for now. So that was my highlights, and if you need more details, we have a white paper which is almost 200 pages with more details published. And if you have questions, you're welcome.